picture, right? In simple terms, when we talk about food sovereignty or food security, what exactly are we talking about?
But who is your guest?
Now, guests to say. Now we ourselves, are we not guests?
Yes. Yeah, so today
Yeah.
we are having our own conversation in
That's
the studio, and Winston is a farmer. I'm a farmer, so we are going to just have a good conversation about food in the studio. You know, usually we talk about food security, Kojo.
Yeah.
And a lot of our national plans, a lot of our national conversations is always about food security. Okay, how can we feed ourselves all year round? How can we have food all year round? How do we produce food all year round? So that's basically what it is when we talk about food security. But for our own national security, we need to move from food security to food sovereignty. All right. How do we control what we produce? How do we control all the elements in the production mix? Earlier, I was talking about the fact that if you want to produce maize, for example, I can give you, there are only a handful of Ghanaian companies that are into maize seed production, the seed we plant. A lot of the seed is imported. Okay, it adds to our import bill, but the risk is that if anything happens and the producers decide not to sell to you, if any government decides to play politics with the global food system, right? Like sometimes in the tech space, when it comes to microchips, for example, the politics we are playing with microchips. How then do we feed the people? Do we have enough local capacity to produce seed for all our over 3 or so million farmers to get the seed to plant? That's something we need to talk about. When you look at our vegetable space, and if you don't mind, maybe today, tomorrow, let's go to the market and see all the vegetable, the agri-input shops. Your vegetable seeds are primarily imported from your lettuce, cabbage, peppers, tomatoes, pawpaw, whatever. They are all imported. So if you don't get these coming in, how do you grow the veggies that you want to feed your people? And it's not like we don't have capacity. If you go to CSR crop research, they've done a lot of work into different varieties of seeds. Okay, for the grain space, they have your rices, they have the maize, they have the sorghum. The Savannah Greek Research Institute has done a lot of work into millet and all sorts of things. And it will interest you to know that it costs just around $30,000 to produce one new variety of seed. It doesn't cost much, but we don't fund these institutions to produce high-yielding, climate adaptable seed varieties for us. They are usually getting funding from the Japanese government, for example, in the rice space and other places. So we as a people need to start thinking how we can ensure food sovereignty. So if the Minister of Agri comes to ask the people and says we'll do A, B, C, D, your next question should be, how are you ensuring food sovereignty, right? Recently, Morocco donated some fertilizer to us. We were happy we've received them. We've distributed it to our farmers. But if we are not importing fertilizer into the country, if nobody is donating fertilizer to us, how do we get the fertilizer, which is a main element of our food production, for our farmers to use to produce? Let's go to the poultry space. Almost all our day-old chicks are imported. Only a few hatcheries in Ghana are actively involved in producing day-old chicks. A lot of the day-old chicks are imported. Okay, so if something happens, again, if there is a global issue and something happens, and we are not bringing in day-old chicks, how do we feed people? And in fact, in the meat space, in the poultry space, we are actually not self-sufficient. We are also importing a lot of poultry to eat. And what we can grow is also imported. And the sad bit is that if you look at the meat poultry, the broilers, for example, the cycle for a lot of the large scale processor of the broilers, they are doing 5 to 6 weeks. So it means that there should be a cycle to replace these day-old chicks. So if there is a war, for example, right now, a third world war, how do we consistently produce poultry to get meat to eat? That is really at the heart of the food sovereignty conversation.
You know, in fact, I'm starting to worry that if we are bold enough to venture from food security to food sovereignty, then the conversation ends immediately.
Yep.
Because the answer is no.
Yeah.
Yeah, the answer is no. As recently as 2022, even with food security, 49% of Ghana was food insecure.
Yep.
As recently as 2022.
Yeah.
So if the security safe, we know the C-top, then as for sovereignty, it's a pipe dream. Currently, we are not producing enough food for ourselves.
Yep.
We do not have access to the inputs, the seeds, to or even if you're talking about poultry, the day-old chicks.
Yeah.
We do not have what it takes to feed our own population.
Yeah.
The little that we do produce here is so skewed towards energy-rich and nutrition-poor food. The roots and tubers, 75% of what we're eating, right? When it comes to protein, half of it is fish. You might have thought that that's a positive because around the world, the average is about 17% fish. We are doing 50% fish. But look at how we are treating our waters. Is there security there?
There is no security there, and that's where one of the risks is. But you mentioned the roots and tubers, and it's one of those areas that we also have competitive advantage, right? And it's one of the things that we also need to look at very well. I'm one of the people who think that wherever God places you, He gives you everything you need, right? God placed us here in Ghana. Ghana, if you look at yesterday, I had a conversation, we had a meeting with one of the companies that is into large-scale oil palm production. And they said that, look, if you look at where Ghana is and where oil palm does very well, 5 degrees north and south of the equator, oil palm does very well. So look at where you are from. Look at where Winston is from and look at the map. Realize that you fall within that. That's why you have your benzo oil palm, you have your trifo oil palm, you have all those things, and they are doing well, right? So your location also gives you competitive advantage. If you look at the global space, for example, yam, Ghana is one of the leading, but Ghana is the leading exporter of yam. I think Jamaica is number 2. So we have competitive advantage. These people we are talking about today, along the Bagre, who are going to be affected, Oti region, northern region, the transition zones from Nkransa, Kintampo, all those places, they have farmed yam for years. They've not gone to school to learn how to farm. But if they farmed yam and if they had the right resources, the quality and the productivity, you'll be marveled. Okay, so when it comes to the roots and tubers, we have a competitive advantage. Banana. You have one of the world's largest single located banana farms in the country. In this country, organic actually, in this country. Plantain. Our environment and our climate allows us to grow a lot of plantain. When it comes to potatoes, we produce a lot of potatoes. When it comes to cassava, so roots and tubers, if you look at Africa, for example, Nigeria is number 1, Ghana is number 2. If you look at the top 10 producers of roots and tubers, Ghana is there. And there are over 500 different things that are made from roots and tubers. From the noodles that we're importing into the country, to chips, to all sorts of things. So we need to look at roots and tubers. Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, for example, Food Research Institute, have done work in fortifying some of these things. So we have fortified gari with extra vitamins added. So it's not something we should overlook. We have a competitive advantage in those things. So let's look at how we can be competitive with roots and tubers. And talking about that, who is ensuring that if I want to grow yam right now, there is enough yam seed? I'll give you an example. This year, on my farm in Ekropon, we formed 5,000 yam mounds to plant yam. Kojo, to get the planting material, the yam seed, it was one trouble after the other. We would drive to Nkwanta to see if we can buy some. Then we go here. I go to the largest yam exporter. Getting the seed is a problem. But with just a few $100,000s, you can have a tissue culture lab that produces this yam seed. Okay. And they can produce potatoes, they can produce yam, they can produce banana, they can produce all sorts of things, which ensures that we move from food security to sovereignty, because now we are in total control of the planting material. And we may have disease-free planting materials. Those are some of the things we need to be investing in as a people, because you can't always jump out to the rest of the world to go and look for seed. We can't always be looking out to the rest of the world for fertilizer. What are we doing with all the investment we've made in the sanitation space for us to be able to recycle waste? About 40% of your waste is organic. If you are treating and recycling your waste very well, this organic waste could go into compost. Compost helps to improve soil health. Compost helps to ensure productivity. So why are we not doing some of these things? Why are we always importing the various components of fertilizer for us to blend to use for farming? And I'm going to ask, if COVID happens, if Russia-Ukraine happens again, if America decides to have a beef with China, for example, if the Boko Haram insurgency increases and now they get surface-to-air missiles and our airspace in West Africa becomes a dangerous place, if, say, we have a lot of pirates in our seas in the Gulf of Guinea and movement becomes a problem and the cost of doing business increases, how do we ensure that food prices don't increase? They are stable and we can have all the inputs we need in-house or locally or within the region to feed ourselves.
Do you think part of it is that we're a little bit spoiled? So we don't have what's the word? We don't have bunker thinking. We don't think about scarcity. Yeah. Because we are so spoiled. Yeah. We have great climate, we have great soil, we have great everything. If we go out and plant something, it will grow. So we don't think about scarcity. We don't plan for scarcity. Why are we not putting as much money and investment into, for example, thinking of how to store food, how to preserve and store food, all the stuff that we grow? Why don't we invest in preserving it, keeping it to last, making it last a bit longer? You talked to me about this thing that you do with tomatoes, right?
Drying tomatoes,
right? So that then you add water to reanimate it later on. Why are these things not staples of our agriculture sector? Why are we not doing these things?
I'm going to come to the tomatoes again and the storage, but you said we have a great climate.
We do.
We used to. You said we have great soils. We used to. We had great water resources. We used to. We had a lot of human resource. We used to. Now, when it comes to climate, for example, with time, you realize that our temperatures are increasing. Okay, this year has been quite different. It's been very cold this year, but temperatures keep increasing. And in fact, years ago, I spoke to the Dock of Chalk and we did some work on the cocoa space. If our temperatures keep increasing, our cocoa productivity will drop, because cocoa thrives within a certain temperature range. In a lot of our forested areas, we've cut a lot of the canopy trees. We are not doing the right crop practices. So if temperatures keep increasing, for example, if it hits, let's say, average of 27 degrees in the cocoa growing areas, you should not expect to have the yields that historically you've been recording. And as temperatures also increases, then pests and diseases also become a problem. So that's one thing we should be worried about. So as part of the Green Ghana initiative, for example, it shouldn't be a campaign and a slogan. The Green Ghana must yield results where we are planting a lot of trees, we are reforesting Ghana, and controlling the microclimate to ensure that temperatures don't rise to a certain point where plants will suffer, and even animals. You said we have water. We don't have water. If you take out the Volta basin and a few of the other basins, almost all our water basins are polluted. From the Tano to the Brim to Densu to Ayensu to which one again? They're all polluted. From areas like Manso, which used to be food baskets for the country, to the Chifu areas to all the other areas we talk about, all the water bodies are polluted. We are losing our lands. We are polluting our land. So we don't have them anymore. And then when it comes to labor, we used to say our Greek employs a lot of the youth and all those things, right?
5
Could
million
you
farmers.
go around the country and you realize that the people farming now are the older generation. They don't have a lot of energy. They are spent. They have all sorts of health problems, and we don't have enough mechanization to even make it better. So the things you said we have and our competitive advantages, we actually don't have them anymore.
We've lost them already.
Those are the things we learned in primary school social studies. They don't apply now.
So we should have had the bunker mentality decades ago.
Yep.
Oh, goodness. Well, the picture is not pretty. We'll see. We'll see if there's hope for the future. Let's wrap things up. And, well, look, if you've been with us from the beginning, you would have realized by now that Ghana is very far from food sovereignty. In fact, food security is a problem. And it's multifaceted. It's a problem that really we ought not have, considering the advantages with which we began. But we're at a point now where, well, everything's on the decline. All the comparative advantages we ought to have had are on the decline. So what's the way forward? Is there hope? How do we go from where we are today, a position of market disadvantage, to a position of food sovereignty? What's the path?
Well, we know the key things we need. We need to control our inputs. We need to have total control over the inputs, right? If you go to CSR, like I mentioned earlier, they do a lot of research into various varieties, even wheat. Now they've collected over 300 wheat varieties, and they've done a lot of work on some of the varieties, and they are still doing a lot more work. So very soon we can grow wheat large scale here, wheat which is adaptable to our environment, right? They have this interesting tomato variety called CRI Kwabna Kwabna. Yes. Cassava,
I wonder why.
yam, maize.
Because aso Anna.
No, usually I think sometimes it's the people who work on it and where your funding comes.
Oh, right.
There is this rice variety called CRI Koreamo. Because definitely the Koreans, you understand. But
you see, the point you make is, I mean, and you made it earlier, but I just want to add this, is actually where our problems are. Mm-hmm. The fact that even funding for research is external.
Yeah.
And so if an external entity is giving you money for research, just think about that. They're determining the scope because you're presenting the scope to them. But of course, they would also have to factor that into their own preference and determine what it is that you can do. If it costs $30,000,
to work on a variety.
To work on a variety.
How much is $30,000 to the
$30,000 is something that we can readily give to these researchers to develop different varieties. Because look, you're making the point. At some point in time, the northern variety of cassava grew quickly, but had certain substances that made it a bit poisonous. Yeah. There were the southern varieties that were taking forever to grow. All we did was to genetically engineer. Now, I'm not talking about modification here. Yeah. I'm talking about engineering here. Was to engineer to ensure that we had a variety would grow quickly, but will have the right, substances in there.
If it's Gary you are using it for, they've worked on a variety that works best for Gary. If it's starch, if it's ethanol,
so what's our problem?
You have the capacity.
Let me ask you guys this: which is healthier, palm oil or olive oil?
Which is healthier, palm oil or olive oil? What I know is that palm oil, for I hope I'm not using the right expression, has a higher boiling point, right? Okay. So if you are doing anything deep frying with any oil that has been made from palm oil, so fried oil, for example, I will use it. This is public education. Palm oil is red, right? It's processed into the fried oils that we eat. You can fry palm oil derivatives 5 times at high heat. Olive oil, if you use it to cook the foods, you are just wasting it. If you are using your olive oil for your salads and stuff, eating it raw, then it's okay. So it's based on what you are using it for and everything. But when it comes to the health benefits, actually, palm oil is great.
I'm so glad you said that.
It's great. It's fantastic.
I'm so glad you said that, because I can't tell you the number of workshops I've sat in talking about nutrition for diabetics and people with, what's it called, non-communicable diseases, where you keep hearing this agenda being pushed for olive oil, right? Olive oil,
Olive oil, no. Odebechi barrier.
right?
No,
But even more importantly, ukofawing.
no.
Where are you? Unless you import it,
Okay.
how else are you going to get olive oil?
So I think the point Kojo makes is that our food, how we prepare them,
Yeah.
should influence the oils we take.
Yeah.
And so because of the kind of food you eat, you're better off using the oil you've been used to all your life.
And more importantly, it is easier for you to produce it
Yes. So
locally. And so why would you?
In
Why
fact,
would you?
let me give you some stats, then Winston can land. Yesterday, I told you we had a meeting with one of the biggest producers of palm oil. And so based on that, I just started looking at some of the numbers. Palm oil gives you about 3.5 to 4 metric tons of oil per hectare. So it means that if it's the highest yielding oil. So the little land we have, we can get a lot more oil.
Thank you.
Peanut oil is about 1.5 to 3.5 tons of oil per hectare. Soybean is about 0.8 metric tons of oil per hectare. Coconut about 0.8. Olive oil is 0.4 to 0.6. And there are the other edible oils like sunflower. And a lot of them, even sunflower and olives, our environment does not support them.
exactly. So and again, it's also all part of people's marketing strategy.
Yes.
So what you would have to do, and I've heard some of the pathologists even make this point, for instance, the oils that you're used to, the oils that you know, those ones that our parents used to manufacture, and today there are better technologies to
We
produce
used to
them.
eat in Katingwa, Kobengwa.
Those are
Adengo,
good for you. Use them. If you want to use and I wouldn't even want to mention brands, if you want to use the foreign ones for your salads and for the kinds of food that they use in preparing, you're okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not the kind of food you eat here. And so learn it.
But this conversation is about food sovereignty.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's why I've said it. I mean, I've been very politically correct because I'm trying to tell you that use what you know.
You know, and on the food sovereignty thing, one thing that for rice, for example, I think that we sat back as a country and let the import cabals just recondition us.
Yeah.
And they've changed the tastes of a whole set of about 2-3 generations to ensure that they always get money in the bank, right? We were sold long grain rice, perfumed long grain rice, and we're told that our local rice, tujimi and all those things, were not good
inferior.
enough. Now we are all dependent on long grain rice. But you know the sad thing, when you cook, when you farm rice and you mill it, you get the long grains, you get broken. Okay, they are all part of the production. Now, the long grain, when you cook it and you put it in your mouth, you will chew it. And it will be broken before it gets into your mouth. So why are we chasing form over substance and incurring so much cost in chasing the form over substance? So all these are things that we need to think about as a people. You asked something about tomatoes earlier. Now, if you go to the Accra Plains, Pram, Kasunya, Chopoli, Sege, Adan, all those places, all the way to Keta, they are farming tomatoes and they are harvesting tomatoes. So you can get a basket of tomatoes for 200 cedis, 250 cedis. This same basket around Christmas will go for 1,000 cedis. And it's because by Christmas we don't have tomatoes. They will lose a lot of the tomatoes through post-harvest losses. We don't have enough sun now to dry the tomatoes. Ideally, what they do in California, they will dry everything. But we can buy dehydrators and fire them with electricity to dry these tomatoes and pack them. In the lean season, when we don't have tomatoes, you put your dry tomatoes in your blender, you add water, you blend, you reconstitute. You have 100% tomato paste. Not the tomato we are eating on the market, which contains only 7% naturally occurring tomatoes and other things. So these are some of the things we need to think about as a people.
Yeah. Look, this conversation as always, is at its beginning. Whenever you listen to us have these things, talk about these things, we are starting a conversation. Where does it end? I would be very interested to hear what the Agric Ministry has to say about the topic of food sovereignty. What their ultimate plans are to ensure that as a nation we will never find ourselves crippled and at the mercy of some other jurisdiction when it comes to the food that we will put in our own mouths and the mouths of our children. So let's hope that this conversation, as it has begun, will catch up with those who we are entrusting with the decision making, so that our future will look a little bit brighter than the picture we've painted here today.
And tomorrow we'll go for the Fidelity Sustainability Summit.
Oh.
Yes, a lot of these conversations will happen, including funding the SDGs and funding agric and funding development. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're so glad you've stayed with us for